Why is the government doing nothing to lock down this country that bears any relation to what most other countries are doing? Why is it that Spain, that France, that Italy, that Belgium, that all these other countries around us in Europe are in almost total lockdown, and we are seeing these catastrophically stupid scenes all over the country of people piling into pubs last week where the Cheltenham Festival wasn't cancelled? We've seen all weekend people going out partying like it's a bank holiday, and still the Prime Minister stands at that podium and says, my advice is that you don't do this. People are not listening to his advice. They want clear direction, these people, because they're too stupid to make that decision themselves. We are risking lives, in my humble opinion, and by all means, tell me I'm wrong, but I think every day we are not locking down properly as a country, we are putting the very health workers that you're talking about at greater risk.
Well, I share your frustration, Piers, and over the weekend, I signed new laws to allow police to enforce the bans on pubs and clubs and restaurants. And as we've seen, the number of people not following the advice is incredibly damaging to the effort to stop the spread of the virus.
It's costing lives, and we all agree that. You agree that. The Prime Minister keeps saying it will cost lives. Why is he not mandating it? Why is he not locking down the country? If that is now the strategy, having pursued a different strategy 2 weeks ago, if that is the new strategy, lock the country down.
Well, the strategy has been the same all along, which is to protect life and to make sure that we stop the spread of this virus.
And with respect, Health Secretary, I don't like to interrupt you, but with respect, your strategy has not been the same all along. There was a massive report by Tim Shipman yesterday, Sunday Times, highlighting how dramatically it changed. You actually came out of that quite well because you were one of the few people that appeared to get it and were pushing for a lockdown. But there was a sentence in that piece, which you'll be very well aware of, involving a guy called Dominic Cummings, one of the Prime Minister's senior aides, who at the end of February outlined the government strategy, Tim Shipman reported, one of the best political reporters in the country. Those present say it was, quote, herd immunity, protect the economy, and if that means some pensioners die, too bad. Not a direct quote, a summation of Dominic Cummings' view of the government strategy. And we know that herd immunity was the strategy for the next 2 weeks, and then dramatically it changed to actually the complete opposite. So please don't insult my intelligence by telling me we followed the same strategy. We haven't.
Herd immunity has never been the strategy, as I've made clear.
Your own chief scientific officer said on the radio, literally 10 days ago, herd immunity was the strategy. Was he lying?
No, he didn't say that. And I don't want to, frankly, get into who said what in the Sunday Times in what wasn't a direct quote.
Let me play to you what the chief scientific officer said. You say he didn't say it.
If you will listen to the answer,
let our viewers make their own minds up about what he said. This is what he said.
To try and reduce the peak, broaden the peak, not to suppress it completely. Also, because most people, the vast majority of people, get a mild illness, to build up some degree of herd immunity as well, so that more people are immune to this disease and we reduce the transmission. At the same time, we protect those who are most vulnerable from it. Those are the key things we need to do.
That was your chief scientific officer, literally spelling out herd immunity, the strategy you say we weren't following.
No, we weren't, we aren't, and the message I give to your viewers, I know that you've got frustrations, and I know that you are...
A bit more than frustrations, to be frank with you. I'm seeing an NHS getting run over, I'm seeing morons out all over the streets, completely ignoring the friendly advice of our Prime Minister. I'm seeing the leader of this country refusing to take draconian measures to lock down the country when almost every other country has done so. He's a libertarian, we keep being told. He believes that it's wrong to remove people's liberty. I couldn't give a stuff, honestly, Health Secretary. And I don't think you agree with it either. I think from what I've been reading, you think we should be locked down, don't you?
What I'm going to do is tell the people who are watching this programme what needs to happen. They need to stay more than 2 metres apart from people who aren't in their household. If that isn't followed, we are going to have to take more draconian action, as we've been prepared to. For instance, bringing in the police powers over shutting bars and pubs and restaurants. As Health Secretary, I am working every hour that there is to protect people. And the tittle-tattle that you talk about, I am not going to get into because I've got more important things to do to keep people
Sorry,
safe.
how dare you, frankly. Tittle-tattle? Really?
What your viewers need to know
You think
is,
what I'm saying to you is tittle-tattle?
I think that picking up on bits and pieces in the Sunday newspapers is less important in terms of broadcasting to the nation what needs to happen at this incredibly difficult time. And what I'm telling you is that I'm working every hour that there is to protect the NHS and get the equipment to the front line, to make sure that everybody has the equipment and the protective equipment they need, to ensure that people know that they must stay apart from others who they don't live with to stop the spread of this disease. And that is what
Let's talk about testing, because only literally 10 days ago, the Prime Minister, on behalf of the government, announced we were not going to be continuing any testing with anyone but the seriously ill in hospital. Literally, as the World Health Organization, you can shake your head, this was what you said from the podium, the Prime Minister. And the World Health Organization was saying at that very moment, testing, 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 testing. Why did we abandon testing for all but the seriously ill? Why are we still only testing 8,000 a day when we were promised it would be 20,000, 25,000? What is going on with the testing where my co-presenter, Susanna, is at home isolating for 2 weeks because one of her family had a cough, may or may not have had it, and they have no way of knowing whether anyone has got that virus in that thing. They may go out of there 14 days and immediately get it. The lack of testing is a massive problem, isn't it?
We are absolutely ramping up the testing. Again, what you said in the question isn't right, but what I am doing is ramping up
Which bit is
the
wrong?
testing.
You can't just say that. Which bit's wrong?
We are ramping up the testing, and we are
What
not.
did I say that was wrong? You said I wasn't right. What was wrong? Don't shake
You
your
said
head.
that-
Just tell me what I was wrong about.
You said that the Prime Minister had said that we were stopping testing. Not
He said, apart from the sick, the seriously ill in hospital, we would be doing no more testing. That was what the expert team at the podium said. Do you dispute that?
Yes, as you characterised it. But Piers, there's a more important thing going on here. I know that people are worried and they're angry. I want to increase the amount of testing too. And I want to communicate to people the things that we are doing. And we should have a responsible conversation based on the strategy that we have as a country to get through this. And as Health Secretary, my top priority of protecting lives is the basis of everything I do, including increasing the testing, which of course is critical, and making sure that I support my brilliant team right across the NHS and my civil servants in the department, all of whom are working 24/7.
The things about protecting them. Yesterday, we saw a scene at one of the Tesco's, where Tesco's brilliantly have opened up the supermarket for an hour for health workers, but all the health workers are going at the same time, creating a massive scrum. I want to show a picture of what's happening in Italy. This is the scene here in our supermarkets. Here's the scene in Italy with what they're now doing, where everyone is outside maintaining a 2-meter distance in lines. Why have you not ordered all the supermarkets, which are very essential, why have you not ordered them as a government to maintain this 2-meter distance that Italy is now deploying? Why does it make any sense to have mass groups of people appearing in supermarkets all over the country, including specifically health workers for 1 hour a day in many of them? And the same question and logic applies to public transport. There are some horrific pictures this morning. Because public transport has been cut right back, the ones that are running are now absolutely jammed with people. How does that make any sense if we're being told to separate and be 2 meters apart?
Well, of course, people in supermarkets should stay more than 2 meters
But they're
apart.
not.
Well, they need to, and as I've
Stop
repeated,
advising them to and order them to and make it happen. That is the job of government. I know you're finding this irritating or frustrating or whatever it is making you shake your head, but these are very logical things that other countries are doing. It makes no sense to me that you as a government say, just stay away 2 meters apart, and everyone ignores you and you don't order it. I don't understand. It can be done. You literally just have to order the supermarkets to do it. What is stopping you?
Well, it's very frustrating, Piers, because I'm trying to answer your questions, and each time I get a quarter of a way through an
that you're
answer.
going to continue advising people when clearly the advice is being ignored. If the advice is being ignored, the job of a government is to order it. As we're seeing, look, if we were the only country involved in this, then I would say, okay, fair enough, you must know best. Every other country around Britain has locked down. Ireland, France, Spain, Italy,
and they're telling
Belgium.
us to
They are all far more
China,
locked down than
Italy,
us,
France.
which prompts the question, what do we know that means we're not doing it, that they didn't get the memo on?
Well, what you've just said again, it isn't the case. And I think the purpose of this interview is to try to explain to the public what we're doing. And I don't think it helps in not allowing me to answer the questions.
Okay.
And
tell me where tell me where I was wrong. Are those countries not locked down?
The measures that are being taken in Ireland are almost exactly the same as the measures that we're taking here. In fact, some of our measures are more stringent. So, and the point is that many of the countries that you mentioned are much further down the curve of the virus, meaning that we're able to act earlier in the progress of the virus than they are. And we are quite prepared to take more action if that is needed. And we keep that under constant review, and that is incredibly important for keeping people safe. Now, I want to see people following the rules because I want to protect lives, and the only way you can do that is by making sure
trusting
that
people who are clearly ignoring you. Stop trusting them, honestly. They don't get it. The scenes over the weekend were horrific. I believe that you share my horror at those scenes. I believe, from everything I've read about you, that you believe in a lockdown. Put the pressure on the Prime Minister. Get him to take the right decision. Can I ask you one specific thing about health workers? Ireland has moved to remove parking costs for all of their health workers. We have not done that. Are you going to do that, and can you do that today? Can you remove all car park costs for all our health workers throughout this crisis at hospitals in this country?
Well, I am prepared to look at that. It isn't as simple as you make out, but it is something, because you've got to make sure that people who are patients in hospitals can still park, and many of our hospitals also are in city centres, meaning that it is complicated. It's something I know an awful lot about. It's something that we're looking at and working on, and I totally understand.
There's an easy way to do it. You just show your NHS pass. Do you feel comfortable, as Health Secretary, given the strain on our health service and all the workers, do you feel comfortable that they're all having to fork out loads of money to park their car at hospitals?
Well, I might have been able to carry on if you hadn't cut me off again. I will answer this question, and I hope that you will have the respect to be able to listen to it, okay? Of course, I want to see health workers supported as much as possible. And I've just told you, I'm looking at this measure to see if there's a way that we can bring it in. And I entirely understand why people feel so strongly about it. What I was going to say is that many hospitals rightly have stopped visitors coming, because obviously we need to stop the spread of the virus, especially in hospitals. And that does free up car parking space. So it is something that we can look at, yes, and I'm very happy to answer that question.
I just want to ask about extra staff, because we've had 500 retired doctors, we've had thousands of nurses who've stepped in. There are those foreign nurses who are in this country. There's one in the US who's got more than 5 years' experience. She wants to be able to help, but that will take weeks and it will cost her over £1,000. Are you looking at waiving those costs to allow nurses, people who are perfectly qualified, to be able to help in this fight against coronavirus?
Yes, absolutely. And we're simplifying the rules to make sure that people from who are qualified abroad can work here. You know, it's all hands to the pump.
Mr. Hancock, I know it's been a difficult interview. It's not going to be easy in circumstances like this to have this kind of conversation, because passions are running high. People are making their own judgment calls on what they're seeing and hearing, and these are unprecedented times. But the Times, which has always been very supportive of Boris Johnson and of the government, has done a very excoriating article today, saying under the headline "War Leader, Boris Johnson's initial response to coronavirus crisis has been hesitant. That must change if he's to maintain public confidence." They say at the end, the country needs to know Mr. Johnson has a coherent strategy. Otherwise, the Prime Minister who dreamt of being Churchill may find himself cast as Neville Chamberlain. I'm not the only one who is raising serious questions about the government strategy. I think it's right that journalists should do that. I don't underestimate at all what you and your colleagues are going through right now. I bet you never imagined in your wildest nightmares you would be faced with a crisis like this, but we are where we are. And we have to have confidence in you, in the Prime Minister, and in the government. You accept that?
I both accept it and I, of course, welcome it. The scrutiny is important because if you have points that can improve the way that we're responding, or others do, we are open and constantly listening to them, because all that matters is getting this response right. My frustration, Piers, is merely that halfway through most of my answers, I wasn't able to complete the sentence.
No, my frustration was what you were saying, was you would say, actually, you were wrong about all that, and then I was just pushing back, saying, well, where was I wrong? I don't believe I've been wrong about any of it.
In a couple of the cases, I did have to point out where it wasn't right, but what really matters is that I don't mind the challenge at all. I mean, I wouldn't have come on the programme if I
appreciate you coming on the programme. Listen, second time you've done it in a week, and I greatly appreciate it. I think these kind of robust conversations are important.
Let me finish the sentence, Piers. These matters are so important, they're so difficult, and people are really worried. And I think that being able to actually explain what we're doing, rather than constantly being interrupted, is just the respectful thing that your viewers want to see. Now, so to answer your question directly, yes, I think the scrutiny is important. And yes, I think transparency in how we're doing things is important. We have kept the same strategy throughout, which we were clear about and published right at the start, that we may have to do these things and we do the right things at the right time based on the science. That's been the strategy from the start. We're pursuing it. We want people to follow the advice, and we have demonstrated that we are perfectly prepared. If people don't follow the advice and therefore the virus keeps spreading, then we're perfectly prepared to take the sorts of tougher measures that you mentioned.
Final question. Have you had a coronavirus test yourself?
No.
Are you going to have one?
Well, I'm fit and healthy, so thankfully I don't have any symptoms, and I'm just I'm okay at the moment.
Do you know if the Prime Minister's had one?
I don't think he has, no, and he's been healthy and working incredibly hard throughout this as well.
Okay, well listen, we greatly appreciate you coming on the programme. We wish you and the government all the very best as you fight this crisis, and let's just hope we get through it.
Yeah, thanks very much. We do appreciate your time. And also, can I just add, because we're just getting messages in, so I just wanted to leave you with one thing, Matt Hancock. I know that you're working really hard to get the protective equipment for hospitals, but Natalie says, when are the PPE kits going to arrive with district nurses? Caroline says, we don't have PPE available to all. Those blue surgical masks do not protect us. There's an overwhelming cry from people getting in touch with us this morning. They're begging you for that protective equipment to help them do their jobs on the front line.
Yes. So get in touch with the hotline. All of those who've texted in, get in contact with the hotline, and we will get it to you as fast as we can.
Thank you.
Final point from Dr. Hillary, who wants to ask you something.
Look, I know you've got to ask probing questions, but I do have trust in Public Health England. I do have trust in our Chief Medical Officer and our Chief Scientific Officer. I think the NHS are doing a fantastic job. We're doing all we can. There's no complete right or wrong. We are further along the curve now, so things will change. I expect we will see more draconian measures introduced, but it's not the government's fault, it's society.
Have you got a question for him, though?
It's society that's making the problem by going out into mass gatherings.
Yeah, but the society has been given a mixed message.
I think the point about herd immunity needs to be addressed, because it's not a strategy, it's a natural consequence of illness which needs to be mitigated by the measures that have been put in place. So I think we just need to calm down a little bit and say things are going along the right way.
People on the front line of the NHS, as you know, they're not calm. They're panicking, they're worried, and they're seeing colleagues falling down, getting seriously sick. They're seeing people in Italy and their health system dying, who work in the healthcare system. This is very serious. But anyway, Matt Hancock, listen, you're a busy guy.
Piers, you should listen to your medical advisor there. I thought what he just said was incredibly wise, and we'll keep listening to the medical advice, and together we'll all get through this.
I listen to Hillary a lot, and I challenge him as well, but he's not the government, you are.
Thanks very much for joining us.
We appreciate it.
And for taking the time this morning. You're watching Good Morning Britain on ITV.